Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one. The introduction. In the stillness of a late autumn evening, the small town of Willow Creek lay cloaked in shadows. The gnarled branches of the deciduous trees swayed gently in the wind, their leaves now a tapestry of amber and crimsonature's final fading display before the starkness of winter. The town, known for its close-knit community and picturesque landscapes, was about to be shaken to its core. On the outskirts, a modest two-story house stood silent, its windows dark, except for the flickering glow of a single lamp in the upper bedroom. Inside, 29-year-old Sarah Mendez sat cross-legged on her bed, her laptop open but neglected as she stared blankly at the cracked wallpaper. Just weeks prior, she had accepted a promotion at the local newspaper, a position she had aspired to since high school. As the new crime reporter, she felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. Sarah had always been drawn to the darker side of human nature, intrigued by the complexities of crime and justice. Her father had served as a detective in the city, often sharing stories that haunted her dreams, but fueled her ambition. But as she would soon learn, nothing could prepare her for the maelstrom of those stories turning into reality. That night, the tranquility was pierced by a sudden commotion, a cacophony of sirens slicing through the night air. Sarah jolted upright, her heart racing as she moved to the window. Police cars flooded the street below, their lights flashing like a scene from a movie. A chilling sense of dread washed over her. Something terrible had happened in her town, and she could feel it in her bones. As she grabbed her notebook, an inescapable feeling settled in. She was about to get more than just a story. She was about to step into a world she had only ever written about. The victim. The frenetic energy of the scene below drew Sarah outside, where the air felt charged with urgency. As she stepped onto her porch, the chill of the autumn air wrapped around her like a shroud, grounding her in reality. The sharp scent of distant wood smoke mingled with the metallic tang of apprehension. She felt compelled to uncover the truth behind the frenzy that had erupted in her quiet town. From her vantage point, she could see the yellow police tape, flapping in the wind like a warning flag. Officers moved with a purposeful intensity, their voices low but urgent, as they coordinated their response. Sarah's heart raced as she ventured closer, a mixture of curiosity and dread propelling her forward. Sarah, a familiar voice called from behind her. It was Mark, a photographer she often collaborated with at the paper. His face was pale, and in his eyes, she saw the reflection of her own fear. "Do you know what's going on?" "No idea," she replied, hardly aware of the chill creeping into her voice as she scanned the crowd forming across the street. But it looked serious. As they approached the barricade, the unmistakable sound of a coroner's van rumbled towards the scene. An unsettling hush fell over the gathering crowd, a collective breath held in anticipation. Sarah's breath caught, her instincts as a journalist igniting. She had to know who the victim was. A detective walked past them, his face set in grim lines, and Sarah recognized him as Detective Harris, a seasoned investigator known for his tenacity. As he moved, she caught a glimpse of the body being carefully lifted from the ground, an image destined to haunt her for years to come. The buzz among the nearby spectators grew, and whispers filled the air like autumn leaves swirling in a "It's Alice Timmons," someone said, and the name struck Sarah like a cold splash of water. Alice was a local barista, beloved by the community for her infectious laughter and warm smile. Sarah felt a rush of conflicting emotions. Sorrow for the loss of someone vibrant, and a fierce determination to uncover how it had come to this. This was no longer just a story. Alice was a persona victim of a dark narrative unfolding in her town. And Sarah knew she would dive deep into the mystery, despite the dangers that lay ahead. The crime scene. As the coroner's team methodically worked, Sarah's gaze remained locked on the grim tableau before her. The flashing lights painted the surroundings in shades of blue and red, creating an eerily beautiful contrast against the stark reality of the situation. Each flicker of light seemed to illuminate the shadows of her thoughts, questions racing through her mind like wildfire. How could this happen in Willow Creek? The police tape stretched taut, a thin barrier between the chaos and the stunned onlookers. Sarah felt the weight of the community's presence, a somber community grieving a loss that felt surreal. Alice had been part of the lifeblood of the town, always ready with a warm cup of coffee and a welcoming smile at the local cafe. It was hard to reconcile the vibrant figure she knew with the crime scene unfolding before her. Detective Harris loomed over the scene, crouched low as he examined the ground where Alice's body had lain. Sarah's heart pounded as she caught snippets of conversation among the officers' discussions of forensic evidence, witness accounts, and the search for a motive. She felt an overwhelming urge to step closer, to understand the intricate tapestry of a life cut short. With a deep breath, she approached the perimeter of the tape, her notebook clutched tightly in her hand. "Detective Harris?" she called out, her voice cutting through the ambient murmur like a lighthouse beacon. He turned, his expression wearied, but she saw a flicker of recognition in his eyes. "What have you got, Sarah?" he asked, measuring her intent. "Anything you can share about what happened?" He hesitated, then replied, "Alice was found here, near the park entrance. It appears she had just finished her shift. More details will come soon, but we suspect foul play." The weight of his words settled in the air like fog, and Sarah felt the chill penetrate deeper. She scribbled down her notes, the urgency of her role crystallizing in her mind. She needed to talk to witnesses, gather stories, weave them into the broader narrative. But first, she had to keep her emotions at bay and focus on the task ahead, understanding the last moments of Alice's life. The path she was walking was laden with danger, but it was the only way to honor the victim and ensure her story would be told. The early investigation. The sun crested the horizon, casting a golden haze over Willow Creek. But its warmth did little to dispel the lingering shock of the previous night's events. Sarah awoke early, her mind racing with thoughts of Alice and the somber scene that had unfolded outside her home. She could barely remember how many hours she had tossed and turned, her surroundings swirling with unanswered questions. After a quick shower, she donned her clothes with fervor, grabbing her notebook and the old, trusty camera that had witnessed countless stories over the years. Today, she would be a voice for Alice, and Sarah was determined not to let fear hold her back. She made her way to the cafe where Alice had worked, hoping to find clues hidden among the bustle of daily life. The cafe was customary. The aroma of coffee hung in the air like comfort, woven through the clinking of mugs and soft chatter. But the mood was heavy. The familiar faces of regulars were washed in shades of disbelief and sorrow. Sarah approached the counter, where Emily, Alice's best friend and co-worker, busied herself. her eyes red-rimmed and hollow. "Emily," Sarah said softly, placing a hand on the counter. "Is it okay if I ask you a few questions?" As the words settled between them, Emily took a shaky breath, the weight of loss palpable. "I don't know if I can talk about it," she murmured, her hands fidgeting with the apron strings. "I understand. Sarah, we need to remember her. We owe it to Alice." With a reluctant nod, Emily hesitated, then recounted the last time she saw Alice. She was happy. Excited about plans for a new coffee blend we were going to launch next week. "I just can't believe she's gone." Tears slid down her cheeks as she continued. The last thing she mentioned was meeting someone later. Her voice trailed off, a shadow of concern passing over her face. "Do you know who it was?" Sarah pressed gently, sensing something hidden beneath the surface. I don't know. She had mentioned a date a couple of weeks ago, but I never got the name. As they talked, Sarah's instincts sharpened. The mention of a mystery contact introduced a crucial thread, the possibility of a relationship gone wrong or a hidden conflict. With their conversation winding down, Sarah exchanged encouraging words with Emily, vowing to return late. As she stepped outside, the facade of everyday life continued around her. She felt the shroud of Alice's untold story lingering like fog. Despite the heartache, an unquenchable fire ignited within her. The clues were there. She just needed to piece them together before the trail grew cold, before Alice was reduced to just another statistic. The dead ends. Days turned into a week, and the intensity of the investigation began to wane. While the local media clamored for updates, Sarah felt increasingly frustrated by the stonewalling surrounding the case. Detective Harris had promised regular updates but seemed preoccupied, lost in a maze of leads that often led to dead ends. With each passing day, she chased whispers and rumors, piecing together fragments of Alice's life through late-night conversations and social media trails. But attempts to contact Alice's acquaintances offered little clarity, and oftentimes their silence felt like an impenetrable wall. As she combed through the threads, each lead brought both hope and despair, like a game of tug-of-war with the truth. One afternoon, she returned to Alice's cafe, now reopening to mournful regulars. It felt heavy, a ghost town, overshadowed by its former vibrant energy. Emily was behind the counter again, her posture slumped and racked with sadness, burdened by the loss of her friend. "Have you found anything new?" Emily asked, her voice barely above a whisper, her eyes pleading for answers. "Not yet," Sarah admitted, the words heavy on her tongue. "I was hoping to talk to more people Alice knew. Maybe they'll remember something. Please don't lose hope." As fate would have it, that day brought her to Sam, a barista new to the cafe who had only worked there for a few months. "I saw Alice talking to someone a couple of times before she got killed," he said, eyes darting around as if afraid of saying too much. "Who was it?" Sarah leaned in closer. Anxiety bubbled in her chest. "Honestly, I didn't see much. They were quiet, kept to themselves. I know it was someone from town, though," Sam stammered, backing away as if he feared his words would draw danger. Sarah pressed on, trying to extract more information. However, Sam's timid demeanor made it clear he was out of his depth. The concept of defeating Alice's murderer was slipping through her fingers like sand. That evening, Sarah returned home, a bitter sense of frustration pooling in her gut. The clock ticked ominously as she paced her living room, going over every conversation she had. Questions taunted her like whispers in the dark. How could she connect the pieces if no one would talk? She plopped onto her couch, surrounded by a mess of notes and printouts, feeling the insidious grip of helplessness. This was a town steeped in secrets. And Sarah was standing at the edge, peering into a darkness she could barely comprehend. Inspired by the fire of Alice's memory, she vowed not to give up. It was time to dig deeper to find the cracks within the facade of Willow Creek, even if it meant facing the very silence that coiled tightly around her investigation. A break in the case. As the days blurred into a monotonous cycle of interviews and dead ends, Sarah felt the weight of Alice's case settle heavily on her shoulders. Each evening, she returned to her dimly lit living room, piecing together leads that invariably led nowhere. Yet within that continuum of frustration, Sarah sensed an undercurrent. A woman like Alice didn't just vanish without leaving traces behind. Late one night, while curling up with leftover takeout and a cup of tea, a notification pinged on her phone, startling her from her thoughts. It was a message from an unknown number. The text read, "I know who Alice was with last week. Meet me at the old park, near the fountain." Her heart raced as she processed the implications. This was the breakthrough she had been aching for. With a quick glance at the clock, she calculated her route. It was late, and the park was known for its eerie quietness after dark. But Alice's story demanded its end, so did her conscience. Wrapping herself in a warm coat, she headed out into the cool night, her breath visible in the air, swirling like her apprehension. The moon cast ghostly shadows as she made her way through the half-empty streets, navigating unfamiliar pathways, lit only by streetlights that flickered precariously. Arriving at the park, Sarah scanned for any sign of movement. The fountain, weathered by time, bubbled softly, the water sparkling under the stars. She felt a torrent of emotions: excitement, anxiety, and a gnawing sense of foreboding. "Sarah," a voice called, and she turned to find a figure emerging from the darkness. It was a young woman, her features obscured by a hood, but her eyes glinting with determination. "Who are you?" Sarah asked, her heart racing faster with each second. I can't say much," the woman said in hushed tones, glancing around as if the very air might betray her. "But I saw Alice a few days before. Before she died, she was meeting someone named Rick." "Rick?" Sarah scribbled the name down, her fingers trembling with urgency. "Do you know who he is?" The woman paused, her brow furrowing. "I don't know much, just that he was new in town. I overheard them talking at Gus's bar. They seemed close, but Alice didn't look herself. Something felt off. Why didn't you say anything before?" Sarah pressed, sensing the hesitation. "I was scared. My brother was involved in something with Rick. I didn't want to get caught up in it." Before Sarah could ask more, the woman turned, her silhouette already melting back into the shadows. "You need to be careful, Sarah. Rick's not just anyone. He can be dangerous." With that ominous warning, she vanished into the night. leaving Sarah trembling with a cocktail of emotions. Clutching her notes, a fire ignited within her. This was the break she needed to pursue the web of secrets. Rick was connected to Alice's fate, and digging deeper into his life could unveil the truth that had eluded her for too long. As the weight of the night settled around her, Sarah felt a shift on that could lead her to justice for Alice. The suspect. The sun broke through the clouds the next day, bathing Willow Creek in a deceptive light tranquility, starkly contrasting the storm brewing beneath its surface. With renewed purpose and adrenaline coursing through her veins, Sarah began her search for Rick. Armed with the scant information the mysterious woman had provided, she started her investigation at Gus's bar, a place where Alice and Rick had reportedly spent time together. The facade of the establishment was worn, but it retained its charm. The low hum of music spilling onto the street as patrons filtered in and out. The scent of fried food and spilled beer filled the air, mingling with laughter and the spirited conversations that played out under dim lights. As Sarah stepped inside, her presence drew curious glances, but she focused on scanning the crowd for anyone who might recognize the name Rick. She approached the bar, where a middle-aged bartender named Joe polished a glass, his eyes betraying a mix of boredom and warmth. "Hey, Joe," Sarah began, flashing a professional smile. He leaned back, considering. "Yeah, I saw him around. Tall, kind of scruffy looking. He's been here a few times, but he doesn't stick around much. Does he come with anyone?" Joe shrugged. He seemed to keep to himself. But the last time he was here, he was definitely with Alice, half drunk, arguing about something in the corner. You could cut the tension with a knife. Arguing? Sarah's curiosity ignited. "Well, what was it about?" "I don't know. Just looked heated." Alice left in a huff, and Rick stayed behind. Didn't look too happy, either. With a nod of gratitude, Sarah left a tip and began scanning the room again, trying to piece together fragments of Rick's personality. An older man sitting at the far end caught her eye, his posture tense as he avoided eye contact. Something in his demeanor suggested he knew more than he let on. "Excuse me," she said tentatively as she approached him. "Do you know Rick?" The older man flinched at the mention of the name, his expression tightening. "Why are you asking about him?" His voice trembled slightly. "I'm trying to understand what happened to Alice," she replied candidly. "Anything you know could help." The man hesitated, then slumped slightly as he pressed his fingers against his temples. "He's troubled, that one. Rumors swirl around him, nothing good. I heard he has a history. But I can't say more." Pushing further, Sarah pleaded. "Please, you have to help. You have to say something." As pressure built, the man glanced upward, his eyes heavy with regret. "Done for. If he finds out I talk to you, I'm done for. Rick's not the type to take threats lightly. Just know he's mixed up with some bad people." Sarah's pulse quick. This was the lead she needed, the pulse of danger that hinted at deeper connections. "Can you tell me where I might find him?" "Try the junkyard on the outskirts of town. He's been seen there, supposedly dealing with some shady characters. Just be careful." With that nugget of information, Sarah felt a flicker of hope, but also a rush of trepidation. Rick was not just a name anymore. He was becoming a looming presence in her investigation, a suspect she needed to confront. Gathering her resolve, she set her sights on the junkyard, a place where secrets were buried. As she left Gus's bar, the reality of what lay ahead settled in. The quest for justice was dangerously close, and she hoped to unveil the truth hidden in the shadows. The trial. The courtroom buzzed with a subdued tension. As Sarah took her seat among the onlookers, the air thick with anticipation. After months of meticulous investigation, late nights piecing together the tragic events of Alice's life, the day had finally come. Rick Whitley, the man who had emerged as the prime suspect in Alice's murder, was on trial. The wooden benches creaked as the judge entered, her black robes billowing like a shroud. The proceedings began with the boring of the official announcements, but Sarah's focus drifted to the figure seated at the defendant's table. Rick appeared haggard and disheveled, his hair unkempt, eyes darting nervously around the room. The difference was stark. Gone was the casual confidence that had once slipped through the threads of conversation. This was a man backed against the wall, facing a battle that would determine his future. The prosecutor, a sharp-minded woman named Claire, stood to present the state's case. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," she began, her voice steady and powerful, "we are here today to discuss the tragic loss of Alice Timmons, a beloved member of this community. Her life was cut short by the defendant, Rick Whitley, who, driven by anger and jealousy, took matters into his own hands." As she laid out the evidence, Sarah's heart raced. The testimony of witnesses spilled forth, painting a picture of Rick as an unstable figure, a man who had once admired Alice but became consumed by darker emotions. The heated argument at Gus's bar was detailed, and later, a witness described seeing Rick at the junkyard late into the night following Alice's disappearance, a place notorious for illicit activity. When it was Sarah's turn to be called to the stand, her stomach turned. This was the culmination of her tireless efforts, the moment she had both craved and dreaded. The weight of the courtroom was palpable as she recounted her pursuit of the truth, the tangled narrative of Alice's last days, and the strange messages that had led her to talk with the mysterious woman. "Are you suggesting there's another person involved?" Claire pressed, her brow furrowing as she focused on Sarah. "Not directly," Sarah replied, adjusting her grip on the stand. "But other people in town knew about Alice and Rick's tumultuous connection, and they hinted he was involved with unsavory characters. It's possible he was entangled in something deeper." With her testimony completed, a wave of relief washed over her, but the trail of uncertainty remained. As Sarah exited, she thought about the shadow of fear that loomed over the courtroom, the tension blurring justice and vengeance. Throughout the proceedings, Rick remained stoic, but Sarah caught fleeting glimpses of panic in his Aishi's fate slipping from his control. The courtroom drama unfolded like an elaborate tapestry, weaving collaboration, betrayal, and sorrow into the core of Willow Creek. Days turned into emotional anguish for Sarah as the jury deliberated, each tick of the clock an agonizing reminder that justice rested in their hands. Finally, the day arrived when the jury would announce their verdict. The packed courtroom stood expectantly as the judge called for order. As the jury reached a verdict, the judge queried. As the foreman rose, silence enveloped the crowd. "We find the defendant, Rick Whitley, guilty of the second-degree murder of Alice Timmons." Gasps filled the air, a ripple effect of disbelief and relief intermingling as the truth revealed itself. Rick's face contorted in shock, the weight of his verdict crashing down upon him like a heavy wave. But for Sarah, the echoes of her pursuit were only just beginning to settle. Alice's story would not fade into obscurity. It would resonate, a haunting reminder of the lives forever changed by one fateful night. As the gavel struck, sealing Rick's fate, Sarah felt a rush of closure mixed with lingering sorrow. Willow Creek would carry the scars of this tragedy, and while justice had been served, healing would require time for a community to move forward, one heartbeat at a time. The aftermath. In the weeks following the verdict, the weight of Alice's murder hung over Willow Creek like a fog. Though justice had been served with Rick's conviction, the scars left on the community were raw and pervasive. Sarah felt the gravity of this change as she walked through the streets, witnessing the subdued conversations and cautious smiles from neighbors who had once thrived in an idyllic bubble. Alice's absence was palpable. The cafe where she had worked remained open, but each coffee cup served was a reminder of the warmth that had been extinguished too soon. Regulars would sit at her favorite corner table, often glancing at the empty chair, lost in thoughts of what had been and what would never be again. Sarah found solace in her writing, pouring her thoughts and emotions into a feature article for the newspaper attributed to Alice's life and a narrative around the impact of violence in otherwise peaceful settings. She interviewed friends and family, collecting memories that painted a vivid picture of a young woman full of dreams, laughter, and light. Every stroke of her pen, she wove together a story that deserved to be told, a story that echoed the loss, reverberating on the hearts of many. Yet, as she admired the resilience of Alice's loved ones, Sarah felt an unsettling sense of urgency bubble beneath the surface. The community's grief was compounded by unanswered questions that lingered like ghosts in the shadows. There had to be others affected by Rick, people aware of his darker lifestyle, the secrets he concealed. Everyday conversations carried whispers of fear, and this unnerved her. One afternoon, while revisiting the cafe to drop off her article, she overheard a conversation that sent chills down her spine. Two patrons were discussing Rick's trial, but their murmurs quickly shifted to the rumors of his connections to a gang operating on the fringes of town. "If he's locked up, it doesn't mean they're done with him," one man whispered. "They'll make sure Willow Creek remembers why you don't snitch." Sarah's heart raced as she processed their words. It was a haunting realization that the social fabric of her town was fraying. The ramifications of Alice's murder extended beyond a single tragedy, cascading into fears of a larger, more sinister network lurking beneath the surface of a community held hostage by silence. In the days that followed, Sarah reached out to Detective Harris, asking for a meeting. She needed clarity, a sense of grounding in the tumultuous maelstrom of uncertainty now surrounding Willow Creek. When they met, she laid out her concerns about the lingering presence of Rick's associates and the potential dangers that lurked in the shadows. "People are scared, and it's not just about Rick anymore," she asserted, her voice steady. "There's something bigger at play." Detective Harris nodded, his expression grave. "You're not wrong, Sarah. We're already on high alert. We've received tips suggesting Rick had connections people we hadn't fully explored. But until we can confirm leads, communities need to be vigilant and prepared." With each passing day, Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settle more firmly upon her shoulders. She couldn't back down. With the community poised on the edge of unease, she endeavored to encourage her neighbors to speak openly and share their experience, encouraging transparency over fear. The scars left by Alice's tragic fate would take time to heal, but as she continued to share her story and advocate for openness among her fellow citizens, Sarah found determination in her purpose. Each life connected to Alice's legacy demanded attention. Through her words, she would turn grief into resilience, lighting the path forward in a community, braving the darkness together, one confession, one story, one heartbeat at a time. Reflection. Reflected over Willow Creek, a sense of stillness hung in the air, punctuated only by the occasional crackling of fallen leaves strewn across the park. Sarah often found solace in her nightly walks, but the familiar landscape now felt like a canvas tainted by loss. Each street corner she passed whispered Alice's name, and while the verdict had brought a semblance of closure, the aftermath had unveiled layers of complexity she had never anticipated. Sitting on a bench near the fountain where she had first met the mysterious woman, Sarah closed her eyes and allowed her memories to flood in Alice's laughter. Her contagious spirit, the dreams of a bright future, snuffed out. But amid this sorrow, she found inspiration. Alice's story was not just one of tragedy. It was a poignant reminder of how interconnected lives could be. It symbolized the fragile nature of existence, the threads that connected the community. Through her work, Sarah had come to embrace her role as a storyteller, not just a reporter, but a vessel through which voiceless stories could transcend silence. She realized the importance of embracing vulnerability, sharing not only the dark alleys of crime, but the light of human compassion. As she looked at the flickering glow of lanterns lining the path, Sarah felt a renewed sense of purpose swell within her. In the wake of Alice's murder, Willow Creek would not be defined solely by fear. Instead, it would be forever marked by resilience and empathy. Through her writing, Sarah would carry Alice's memory forward, entwining it with the tales of those willing to stand up against darkness. It was time to celebrate the life that was lost, advocate for justice, and remind the world: every voice matters.